I'm usually
Yes.
going without one. Hold on. And I'm almost never doing this, so
No, I understand. It takes some getting used to, but it becomes really easy after a while.
right. Okay. I think that works.
Alrighty.
Okay,
Let me just
cool.
expand your camera so we're both. There we go. Okay.
At least we're
All
all
right.
equal.
Yeah. Well, I wanna make them. I wanna see if we can make it
Just
because
the two of us, right? Yeah.
well, no, not just that. It's like Jessica in Skip. When I interviewed her, I don't know, not an interview. When we had a discussion, it's like when like with her, the screens like actually extended a little bit more, so it was like we
Was she
gobbled
on
up
her own
more.
live to start?
I think so.
That might be the difference.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, all really what matters is that people hear what we have to say.
Right.
All right. So before we jump in, oh, let me just say the date because I feel like that's important. Today it's March 14th, 2025. But it's Friday. This is Intel Guy, and Intel Guy, please give us your credentials.
Oh gosh. Well, I am horribly unprepared. Let's see.
Yay!
So, I was a Marine Corps officer in the intelligence community for 10 years. Spent a tour at the NSA. I have supported real world operations across multiple COCOMs to include the Middle East through supporting special operations, specifically JSOC,
What's JSOC?
and Joint Special Operations Command,
Yeah.
based out
We
of
don't know
North
any of
Carolina.
the abbreviations.
Sorry, yeah, but well, everybody knows NSA, so there's that. But
Civilians. We're babies. We're stupid babies, you know?
yeah, yeah. So Joint Special Operations Command specifically comprises of like the Tier One units, like SEAL Team Six, the famous SEAL Team Six, the Delta Force, that kind of thing.
You worked with them.
Um, so our products that we developed, like our intelligence products and supported their operations. And then also I trained up the analysts that would actually go deploy with their teams. So I actually screened, assessed, and selected the analysts that would support them.
Wow. All right, what
So,
else?
oh, and then did some time over in the Pacific as well with the Marine Infantry, and then of course, not of course, but also with special operations units in Southeast Asia. So yeah, that's pretty much my intel background. I've extended that into the private sector. I now run a global security operations center for a Fortune 400 company. So we focus on everything from cyber to insider to natural disaster to all sorts of threats.
And
So
you're retired from the Marines, right? You're no longer serving in an official capacity for the U.S. Marines.
right, correct, yeah.
Okay, great. Because so then, if you ever felt the need, you can criticize. You can criticize any administration because you're not active personnel, right?
Right, yeah. Not I still try to. I can criticize for sure. I try to and of course I let my bias out here and there, but I try to make it middle of the road if I can. But yeah.
You know, when I'm having a discussion on my lives, I also try to just I don't know
Wait,
how.
wait, 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 wait. Before, so can we get a background on you because
Oh,
nobody knows, or they know but they don't know.
yeah, I have no like I wish I could say I served. I did not have that. I did not have that honor. No, I'm just like I gotta. Let's think. Where do I start? I'll just start with my college education. Well, actually, before that, I was a chef, and
Okay.
like yeah, French cuisine, Italian, and then I decided to go back to school, and I majored in mathematics and majored in economics. So I did a double major, and I got a scholarship for it. I was 30 years old when I enrolled in a community college, and my teachers really they were like, hey, you're kind of smart. Maybe you shouldn't just try to get a culinary certificate. What if you actually you know try to do something intellectual? And I was like, I'm a cook, but and I ended up you know yeah, like I got a pretty fancy scholarship that got me propelled to a 4-year university. So then, and I majored in mathematics kind of like on a self dare because math was my absolute worst subject for most of my
Hmm.
life. Like up until I was like 29, I would have like nightmares about math class. like I barely passed math in high school. Like I passed with like a C minus, and that was only because the teacher felt bad for me, like just bad, right? And I actually dropped out of college when I was 19 to go work in kitchens, and I
Wow.
went back to college at 29, and
That
that's
was
when
bad when I went to college at 26, but okay.
there we go. And the funny thing was like because my biggest fear when I was back in school was like taking algebra because God, so many nightmares. But what I did is I started learning. I went on Google and I just started learning like third grade math, and then I learned fourth grade math, and I just built my way up to like eighth grade math. And then I was like, okay, maybe I could survive algebra. But I ended up acing algebra, and then I ended up acing pre-calculus, and I had to take calculus if I wanted to major in
Right.
mathematics. And this is all in community
Yep.
college. But I told my wife, I'm like, okay, if I get an A in calculus, I'm gonna get a major in mathematics. And I got an A in calculus, and I was like, okay, let's freaking do this. And so I majored in mathematics and economics, and I actually graduated magna cum laude.
Oh, congratulations.
I got like after that scholarship, I got like grants for my research on economics and mathematics, and it was pretty cool. And then I got my master's in I like the fancy term is data science, but it's pretty much statistics.
Hmm.
I got my MS in statistics, and it was really fun because it wasn't just like learning about stats and how to calculate, but it was also how to like program. So I learned like Python and
Oh, good.
R, these other
Yeah.
computer languages, and I was building my own models. That was a lot of fun. And funny thing is, I then ended up working for like a pretty fancy schmancy bank for like 3 months, and I was like, I hate this so much. Oh my god, holy cow, what did I do? No, and so I let myself get fired,
Wow.
and I just became a math tutor, and I was doing pretty well. I was making like just as much money as a math tutor as I was working for the scumbag dirtbag banks, and
Yeah, they all are.
yeah, they really they're heartless, you know.
Yeah, they are.
And then I ended up I was math tutoring for a while, and then I remember on TikTok around 2021, um, I was in crypto a little bit, and I was paying attention to like some of these crypto influencers, and I was like, I could do this,
Wow. Okay.
and I just started talking about it. I wasn't telling anyone to buy what I bought. I wasn't. Nobody. That's the thing. I was always accused that people are paying me to talk about the cryptos.
Right.
No, that wasn't the case. I just really was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Look at this. Look at this thing. No one's ever done this before. And then it crashes, and I'm like, that was still cool, you know? So, and
That's a
then,
good look at it.
right, yeah, because it's like, when you're doing like startups, it's like you test something. If it breaks, you either fix it or you discard it, but you stick with what doesn't break.
Right.
That's where we're at. And anyway, like around 2022, I did this thing where like I saw there's something called the Luna collapse because there's this huge crypto called Luna. It was like
Yeah,
billions of
I
dollars,
remember that.
and I started to notice that their stable coin, which was pegged to the actual Luna coin, was starting to drop in value. And I was telling people on TikTok, I was like, hey, this is a problem. All right. I mean, when something that's supposed to be $1 is like 99 cents or 98.5 cents, that is not good. And I got a whole bunch of flack from the crypto community. And then 3 days later, it completely collapsed.
Wow.
And after that, things got really toxic for like months. And then I started getting heavily censored. And so I was like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to be a part of this space. I'd rather just talk about other things that I know. And that was when people started saying the dollar was crashing and they were doing all this desperate stuff. So I was like, oh, I almost cursed. And I was like, screw that. No, no, no. And I started going like after those people and the people who made these and going after the claims, just like, hey, the dollar's not crashing because look at how the world works, and look,
Right.
the
Yeah.
dollar isn't dead. Look at how the world works. And then I started getting like all these like really nice messages, and I started getting followers, and then I started getting messages, all these people who wanted to like unalive themselves because of all the bad news that they kept
Right.
seeing on social media. And then I got mad, like not at those people, but I got mad at those influencers.
Right.
So I kind of devoted my page to just dispelling the stupidity. You
Well,
know?
yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, like you've really, kind of obviously etched out your own world in that space very successfully, and it's
Thanks.
probably due to you being able to deliver detailed facts in a very understanding, concise fashion. More so than even myself, I certainly don't have time to do the things that you do,
I have
and
zero
so
shame as well. I have
yeah,
I don't care
yeah,
about failing. So like that's
yeah.
just
But yeah, so I mean, obviously you've done really well for yourself in that space, so that's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man.
Especially given the fact that you didn't have any, but you had the statistics background, and
Yes.
mathematics helps as well. And
Yeah. Well, I'm
so
actually a history and humanities guy. Like
oh, okay, there you
even
go. So
I had
it's all
none of
wrapped up
those.
perfectly for you. Yeah,
Yeah, like I've been reading like when I was like 8 years old, I memorized every president and the term they served.
nice.
You know,
Okay,
so like, I was reading history encyclopedias and all kinds of stuff like that, like since I was like very little. So like even though
that's that.
I'm considered a numbers guy, I'm really not. I'm more of a history humanitarian, humanities.
Right, but you do all you do you have the classic make not the classic
Yes.
makeup. You have a great makeup of what it would take to provide predictive analysis.
I like
So yeah.
classic. Call me classic. That makes me feel classy. Makes me feel less trashy.
Very well. Real quick on an audio pulse check for the audience. I see we have
Yeah.
somebody, a couple people in here. Can we get a confirmation from somebody in the comments that they can hear us just fine?
Yeah, can you hear us okay?
Photographic memory, somebody asks.
No. Oh, is that Pogue? Hey, Pogue. I'm going to be interviewing Pogue on Monday.
Ah, okay.
Discussing. You're right. Discussing
Yeah.
sounds better than interview.
Well, because I like to have a conversation, and sometimes people have brought me on their podcasts, and it's just been this constant like drill of questions, and it's never turned into like just a back and forth like, "Hey, did you ever think about this? Yeah, let me give my 2 cents on that. What about this?" It's
I have a question
frustrating.
for you. I have
Yeah,
a
sure.
question for you. Is it World War III yet?
You should know the answer to that.
I don't think we're
uh,
close to World War III. I
oh,
think.
Logic and Liberties in the comments. Hey, Logic. Yeah, no, we're not. And I don't want to interrupt you there. So what were you gonna say?
No, you're the professional here.
Yeah. So I mean, now you're gonna hate that I say this. Maybe you won't. I don't know. But now that Trump is in office, we are much less towards World War III than we were prior to that. That said, even with the previous administration, we were nowhere near it. I just think that with this current administration, we're even less than. That's all I'm saying. But like we were never near it. I guess is my point.
Yeah. Yeah, we were still too powerful. Like
Yeah.
it's like, and I think if there ever was a brushing against the cage of the NATO alliance, I think we would all just come together and kick the crap out of whoever even entertained the idea of it.
Right, exactly. And it has to come up against NATO itself, though. It can't do none of this proxy stuff. That's just not
Yeah.
where it's at. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So why do you think we're in less danger of World War III under our current president?
I think for the same reason everybody's upset with him is it's just he presents a chaotic nature about him where people just don't know what to expect, right? One day he's praising Putin, the next day he's like, you better get on board the deal or else,
Yeah.
it's just like this. I just cite that as one example, but it's this constant back and forth that people just don't have time to plan. They don't have time to react, or at least, sorry, to be proactive in their reaction, right? All they can do is just react to the next thing, and while it's exhausting, it also gets people to just kind of sit back down, right? It's just like, okay, maybe we're not gonna go forward with this idea to invade Taiwan this year, I mean, yeah, that kind of thing.
You
So
might
it's
be right. Like honestly, the Rebel Intel said the same thing. He said that Trump represents a lot of chaos, and I mean it does have its negative side effects, does have negative consequences,
sure,
but it's like it it messes up any kind of statistical models that our enemies maybe have. Like what they could probably tell. Oh, Biden is like 90% likely to not escalate things further, so we can push the envelope and we could do things.
exactly.
They may actually have that, and I believe that Biden really, I honestly, I think Biden and Obama were both cowards for not giving Ukraine the support that they needed.
I agree.
I voted for both. I voted for both of those guys. I think that they just like Obama didn't want to rock the boat, and now we're paying for it.
Right.
Biden, I guess, the same thing. And the BS I didn't like was that, well, we don't want to push Russia to nuclear escalation. And if you listen to the habitual line crosser, he said once a while ago, they may not even know which nukes work.
Right.
And what if those
Right.
nukes? And since they're not sure of the efficacy of these nukes, they may not even make it outside of Russia.
Right. And also it's just it was I felt like whoever was providing the analysis was didn't know what they were talking about, and it was very scary to see that kind of analysis sit at the top of at the very tip top of decision making, because Putin's extremely clear about the use of nuclear weapons. They actually follow their doctrine pretty much to the letter of the law, and their doctrine is very clear: don't invade us. That's it. Don't invade us to the point of destabilizing our regime, or collapsing our country. That's it. Any other, like this little incursion to Kursk, that's nothing. That's an invasion, but it's nothing. I'm not gonna use a nuke for that. On the flip, everyone's like, well, what about all the times that he was threatening? I was like, that's just strategic messaging. It's just to see what to your earlier point, it's just to see what he can get out of you. Clearly, he got a lot because you didn't do anything. You didn't flow in
Yes.
any forces. You just kind of sat there and let me do what I wanted. So of course I'm going to keep playing that card. It's just a tactic, but it doesn't mean he's actually going to employ it. I mean, well, we can't risk that. Yes, you can. You actually could have risked it. It would have been fine. But like, we don't have the people in that position of power to make those strong decisions. And then so here, what do we have? We have him retaining 20% of Ukraine. So
Yes. Now, okay, Handsome Harry says that Biden wanted to put troops on the ground and was advised against it. All right, he was advised against it, but nobody forced him to not, to do that. Like, nobody could really force Biden to like not do something when in this matter. Like, maybe
right,
not put troops on the ground. I honestly don't think we even needed. Like, I don't think we needed to. We need to ever put troops on the ground in Ukraine. Like, we just all we really need to do is take the leash off of Ukraine and give them all of the weaponry they require to properly repel this invasion.
yeah.
You
Look what
know?
they just did to Moscow.
Yeah.
Did anything
Yes.
happen for that? Not really. Not in the large, not in the grand scheme. Imagine if they'd done that, years ago,
Well,
right?
why
That
not in
would have.
2014? Why not
Yeah, exactly,
2014? Be like, okay,
exactly.
not only are we going to sanction you, but we are going to give Ukraine full aid. And why not just all of a sudden Ukraine is going to be used as a NATO training ground? Be like,
Right. We could have
why?
done it. We were already sending in National Guard troops since 2014 to train up their military. That was and Putin never said a thing. So
Yeah,
like, what was going to stop us from establishing a more permanent presence and then flowing in NATO forces and just be like, you know what, this is a NATO protectorate, like, or
that's it.
whatever, you know?
That's it. That's it.
But
And
they never did that.
no, yeah, yeah. And I mean, that's something we can agree on. It just now I want to get back to Pogue. Pogue Actual said it only takes one nuclear bomb to work.
That's not
Uh,
true.
well, okay. You tell me your reasons, and I'll tell you mine.
No, I was kind of curious what else. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What else was that? All he said?
Yeah.
Oh, to work for what to happen? Like, I guess my question is for what?
Mm. I'm
Like,
guessing to just wreak destruction, to show the consequences of pissing off Russia, or to just kill a lot of people, or for World War III. Okay. So, do you think it takes one nuclear bomb to work for World War III to begin?
no, I don't think so. No.
Why?
I think because it depends on the damage the employment, right? The damage, like, so there's escalations to even the use of nuclear weapons. If Putin really wanted, he still had the ability to do all the normal steps, right? To activate nuclear um, units, to reposition them, to move missiles closer, to make them to show them maneuverability. These are all things that he could have done. He could have even set off a low yield off in Siberia to say, "Hey, I'm very serious about this," and look, they work. Like, he didn't actually
Ah,
do he didn't actually do
wow.
that, right? Yeah, and so like, he could have done that, and then that would have maybe given pause. Um, but he's also looking at the fallout aspect of it. It pretty much damages not just Europe but Moscow. That's why he would never use one in an aggressive offensive tone. It would very much be in the defense and with Russia proper. Now, at this point, because we allowed this to fester for since 2014, he
of the
could
fourth.
very well include Crimea and the Donbass as Russia proper at this point. But again, he's going to use them in the defense. Uh, we've given him nothing to suggest that and it's in the defense again to the point of an actual invasion, right? So we actually have to do offensive actions in an invasion capacity for him to be like, all right, time to nuke. We're nowhere near that.
Yeah.
So
And now, were you finished? Because I want to add two
yeah,
things.
sure,
I don't.
sure.
Okay. So one, I think even if he did that like warning nuclear bomb, I think that would alienate China, just because it's like, holy cow, there's a like this guy might actually launch a nuclear bomb. I think that's a. Go ahead. What was
Sorry,
that?
Poke said he
Oh.
agreed with that. So
Oh, okay. And the second thing is, you know, is like, and I've mentioned this a couple times. Maybe you saw the post, but in 1944 we got the nuclear bomb, and that was about 81 years ago. All right, so if you go to 1944, 81 years before that, it's like 1863, and the most advanced thing we had was like maybe the Merrimack submarine, a rifle, a cannon. So like just the level of destructive yield in that period of time. So just imagine what must have happened 81 years after that. And I don't just mean we have a bigger explosion, but the sophistication of our technology. I bet you probably know this better than I do, but we probably have such sophisticated means of like interception or something that I just it wouldn't make sense for that to not be true, for the sheer fact that for the past 81 years we have the largest military budget. We import the smartest scientists from all over the world, to help us with our technology. Like we have DARPA, which is nightmare fuel. So it's like we're still talking about tech that's from like the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and we're making it like it's the biggest boogeyman of 2025. It's I just think that's I don't get me wrong, nukes are dangerous and they're terrifying and they're very scary. But I think if Russia made any move at all to do anything with a nuclear bomb, we would know about it we would know about it instantaneously. That's what I think. And
oh,
we
well, I mean, so we would know. Yes, short answer is yes. We would definitely know about indicate. We'd definitely have indications and warnings out there that would tell us like intentions. We have ways and means to detect early on to detect actual use of defensively. Unfortunately, and really habitual line crosser is the expert here, right? We focus on areas of high areas of importance, right? But we don't have like a shield per se, which is why Trump is asking for like a golden shield. And because at the end of the day,
doesn't
they're
that
still
sound a
very
little perverted? Golden
it does it
shield.
it does. But then at the same time, he's been all about gold his whole life, so maybe that's
Yes.
also a
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
reference that everything is gold plated in his house, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why he uses the terms he does, but the point of him wanting the shield though is to remove the the assured destruction principle, right? So if one side can survive while the other gets destroyed, well, now we have even more leverage. Oops, sorry.
Yes.
So there's that. The ability to intercept something like the Oreshnik, for example, is actually probably quite complicated. We just don't have the defensive weapon systems available to get every warhead, right? And that's really the problem, is that there's actual tactics employed in warhead uses, right? So the first warhead may be a dummy, the second one may be used simply for EMP, the third, fourth, and fifth may then be your nukes. So it's just like, but you don't know which one's which.
Hmm.
So it's overwhelm. It's a classic case of overwhelm the defenses. So
And if Russia did launch a nuke, it wouldn't be at us. It would be at somewhere in Europe, right? Because it's a closer target.
well, again, it's all about defense. So if they did, it's going to be something along the lines of what country is invading them, right? So if it's France and Germany, he's probably going to launch a nuke not only in the battlefield but maybe at their capitals. Um,
How
you
would
know,
they defend their country? Like maybe we have some means of deflection, but we don't know. Maybe if Germany or you
I
know.
highly doubt it. So to not to stay on the nuke subject for too long, but Germany and France are derelict in their duties, right? And I know you called them out on it. I've called them out on multiple times. They've had since 2014 to get their act together, and they basically told everyone, every president, to f off, and that we'll get to our 2% according to our timeline, not Russia's, not yours, not anybody, and that's exactly what they stuck to. The two largest economies in Europe basically said, everybody else fend for yourself, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and so Trump comes in and like a mob boss and says, oh, okay, you don't want to pay attention to what I have to say? Very
Yeah.
well. Paul, and the thing is like he's not abandoning NATO. He's just abandoning those that don't refuse to go along. So like he loves Poland.
Yeah.
He ain't abandoning Poland. He ain't abandoning the Baltics. He loves them. They do
Yeah.
what he says.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a very good point. Like it's just like okay, because people really they when they think about the Russian invasion, they're like, oh yeah, since Russia invaded in 2022, and even I've used that moniker, but really, Russia has invaded them since 2014. It's been 11 years, and when Russia invaded and then annexed Crimea, Europe, like all of Europe, was still heavily relying on Russia for their energy needs. Like, how the heck Russia gobbled up land, and Germany is building more pipelines to Russia, like more oil, more natural gas, more
yeah,
reliance, more trade. It just showed how. I mean,
little they
obviously
cared.
America didn't care, but Europe, like it's a European neighbor, and how much they didn't care. They were like, we don't care about the Ukrainians, really.
Right,
You could do that. We'll appease you and just give us that oil, give us that natural gas, and now they're paying for it. Now they're
right.
scared, and now they're talking about the $730 billion aid package to Ukraine. And like I said, that should have been offered in 2014.
Right.
Now,
I agree.
do you think that we orchestrated the Ukrainian coup in 2014, the Maidan revolution?
I will. I'm going to disappoint a lot of my followers, but I don't think we directly like. I think you talked about this also. I think
Yeah.
I may have
Call
caught
me
this,
liberal
but
scum. Get him back. Get him back and call me liberal scum.
you
There you
you
go.
liberal scum, you no.
There we go.
Um,
There we go. They like you again. Okay.
yeah. So it's not to say that we didn't have some influence. I of course we did, but in order for any of our influence to be successful, there has to be an organic element to it, and and also, and I've shared this privately. Logic's in the comments. Thanks, Logic, by the way. Shared this with her is just that as powerful and as influential as I guess maybe TikTok terms CYA, I don't know. Is they spread themselves across the globe and they don't have endless oodles of cash. And so I've never seen an op with to that level of success. So I really couldn't say that that's exactly this what they did at all. I think they influenced it, but at the end of the day, it was going to happen whether, what I'm saying? It's like adding fuel to an already
Yes.
burning fire. It's just like, it's already going to,
Yes.
I'm
That's
sure
what
they,
that's
I'm sure they had a hand in it, but like it would have been successful if they were there or not. I guess my point.
that's what I that's so this is where like I had a discussion with Rebel Intel about this, and he was like, "Well, the CIA and American psyops, they could do all these things," and I'm like, "Okay, the CIA and our whole psyop, we can't just make a whole like a huge chunk of the population like flip the switch and completely turn against their government. Like, because if we could do that, we would have won Vietnam, we would have
Right.
won Korea, we would have succeeded in Afghanistan, we would have succeeded in Iraq. So
Right.
clearly, something organic has to already be there.
Right.
And Ukraine is one of the like any country that directly borders Russia, aside from Belarus, has like a very good memory of what it was like to be in Russia,
Right.
to be under their heel, so that's clearly there's like you've probably been to Eastern Europe. I've been to Poland, been to Ukraine, been to Czech Republic. They were like you couldn't, in some of these places you couldn't even say Russia without people starting to curse and
Right.
trying to speak English to you to tell you how bad Russia was. Like stupid kurva danas. So um and so clearly that's the case, and Russia has like I know America's hands are far from clean, but like America has its dirty hands in a whole bunch of places all around South America, the Middle East, sure, parts of Asia. Well,
Right.
Russia has its hands deep like into the crotch of Eastern Europe. All right. And like, so there's a lot of popular resentment against that. And I really think there's no way that our CIA would have gotten tens of thousands, if not up to 100,000 Ukrainians to be
I'd
out
say
in the
even more than
cold.
that.
Yeah,
I'd
hundreds,
give the number much more than 100,000. Look at those
hundreds,
videos and photos.
yeah,
There's like half a million people in the streets. That's
half a
crazy.
million for months every
Right.
day in the
Yeah.
cold. That's not something.
That's not CIA funded. Yeah, no.
There we go.
So,
And
yeah.
so, like, I just and it's just so shocking that
Yeah,
people.
oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I want you to talk. I talk
Well,
enough.
I was gonna say you know my compatriots over on this side they focus on all the wrong things with regards to like the Maidan Revolution, you know, and they cite the Victoria Nuland call as if that's like some huge you know smoking gun, and they don't focus in on the context of the call other than to say that she wanted this person to win over that. And I'm here to say we have those phone calls all the time. Like we're
Yes.
always like talking about like, huh, which person in this foreign government would we rather see successful? I think they should focus more on the fact, and it's more ammo for them really, how she talked about the EU because she said fuck the EU straight up. She was just like,
Yeah, yeah.
well, that's why she got retired, right? That's why she got fired, really. Is because
Really?
yeah, well, she was third most powerful person in the State Department. She was gunning to be the next Secretary of State if all, but that kept hanging over her head like an albatross as she told the EU to fuck off, basically. You know, in a
Let's not
private phone
curse
call.
just because, like,
Oh,
don't curse
sorry,
because, no, TikTok will censor me.
got you.
Anyone else,
Yeah.
like, I get all kinds of hate. People curse me out. But if I say, hey, you're dumb, immediately I get, like,
That's
taken down.
ridiculous. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they've done to you is ridiculous too, because your content is probably some of the most unbiased, intellectually sound content.
Thanks.
You know, on the foreign policy front, and on the for the most part, and on the economic front for the most part.
Yeah, thanks.
But it didn't deserve. You don't deserve their treatment at all. It's ridiculous.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a little frustrating, you know. Eh. But back to the what was her? I forgot her name.
Victoria Nuland.
There you go, Victoria Nuland. All right, so yeah, so were you finished or did you have
Yeah, that
something?
was just. I think people should
Yeah.
focus more in, and it'd be more for beneficial for them to say how much she told the EU to just go you know go do its thing. So yeah,
So
but nobody does. They're just like, oh, she's in control and has all this power, and I'm just like, it's just no. But yeah,
thank you, Doughboy. Yeah, so Doughboy just said I'm being shadow banned, and it's true. Like normally I average like 50,000 views, you know, in a day for a post, but now I'm getting like 5,000, 10,000. Like this one post I made. Like
right.
usually if I get like 10,000 views in an hour, that means I'm gonna get like 300,000 views by the end of the day. That happened with my post yesterday, just about like how now might be a good time to consider, you know, purchasing some assets later. Uh, and
Yeah,
like 10,000 views in an hour, and then now I'm only at like 40,000. So yeah, TikTok is definitely castrating my viewership. But
yeah.
all right, so we were talking about Victoria Nuland. Okay, so you know, let's talk about our favorite president. Like it's so funny because a lot of people assume that I am not a fan of the of our orange president because like I'm a liberal or Democrat or any of these things, and it's like I mentioned in my comment. No, I just believe in having a genuine meritocracy. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If you have the merit for it, then you deserve that position. And that's why I don't drink the Kool-Aid about all the bad Trump stuff because I mean, come on, man. Let's not be cultish. Let's not have an anti-Trump cult. Let's just be like, hey, this is a mistake that's being made. That's bad. Let's try to do something about it. Like, tell
Right.
me why. That's why I made that post. I don't think Trump is a Russian asset. I think
That was
he.
really big of you.
It's just the truth. I'm not signing onto anyone's effing bandwagon, man.
Right.
And like I think
I think meritocracy is fine, and I think we should all strive for it. The problem is that it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. None of them actually none of them actually adhere to that, right? I mean, the good old boy network, as it's you know commonly phrased, is alive and well within every aspect of our industries, especially in DC. I mean, when you see the fact that they're all and even Elon spoke on this, as much as people hate him, but he's not wrong, right? Everybody's like intermarried or divorced somebody else or like their kids or something, and it's all nepotistic, and they're all in positions of power in
Yeah.
different lanes within DC that itself, and it's just you're just like wow, and so they didn't actually deserve any of the positions they got, right? It was just all about who they knew and like how did their personality jive with everybody else's. And I'm gonna make a wild claim here, but for
Yeah.
example, the former FBI director Christopher Wray, he did a fine job, I thought, for the most part. But like when you compare his resume, and you're gonna flip your lid on this, but when you compare his resume to Kash Patel's, Kash Patel has a better resume. The only difference is the fact that the only thing that would make Chris better is the fact that he grew up in the FBI. But and so maybe there's somebody in the FBI that has something that's better than Cash's because Cash didn't grow up in the FBI. But the fact that they picked or Trump even picked Christopher Wray, I felt like it was just like I don't really know how to explain it. He didn't deserve the position, is what I'm trying to say. Like he was his resume was so lackluster. I can't imagine that he was the best, right? So I don't know who he knew to get
Mhm.
nominated. I don't know, but he to me he's an example of a lack of merit to still get to a high level position. But then now, and I don't mean to get off of that, but then now let's look at all our elected officials. You and me are smarter than anybody that sits in that Congress, and yet
I feel that way. I
and yet
feel that way.
they're in positions of awful lot of power. Did they
Well,
deserve to did they get the merit to get there? I don't know, but anyway,
I
go ahead.
spoke. I spoke to I spoke to someone who's. I guess you could say a correspondent with Congress, and he told me that they're actually a lot smarter than they portray themselves on the media because all they're doing, they literally are like seeing who can out crazy the other one. They're seeing who could say the most outrageous stuff most loudly to get the attention because if their term runs out, they want to write a book or they want to be a consultant somewhere. And that's literally, they're literally advertising
Right,
for look at the space I can occupy.
right.
And I was like, how horrible is that? They should be serving the constituency, you
My,
know?
my my thing is that once they get voted out, what do they go do, right? I mean, like the intent was go back to have a normal job, but can they once they've been a representative? I don't know. Maybe not in this day and age, which is why they do what you're talking about, is because it's like
Yeah.
they still have to worry about income at the end of the day. So they're still another
Yeah.
human being. It's like who's going to pay their bills? So yeah,
Okay, so I agree. Like, there has been nepotism. I mean, I'm sure the history is just rife with it. Like, just
right.
from like 1788 to today, there's nepotism. And the Kash Patel thing. I'll tell you, I haven't seen Kash Patel's resume,
Hmm.
so
Okay.
I haven't seen Ray's resume. The only thing I have is just whenever anyone answers questions the way Kash Patel or any of those people answer in Congress, they give these non-answers. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to drown you in a used toilet if I ever could. You know what I mean? Just yes or no questions, you low life piece of scum. I mean,
Oh, there you go.
well, no, just it's like it just like you know, um, I can't even remember. But okay, no, I can't remember any question now because I'm on the spot. But like they've answered like very simple questions. Okay, perfect example. Was the 2020 election stolen?
Right,
They can't answer that question. It's like
right.
there's theatrics, but then there's also like let's have at least a modicum of integrity. Let's just have a modicum of devotion
I
towards the.
actually, I actually appreciated the dance or the chess that was being played those days because, they didn't want to piss off the Don, but they also had to give some kind of answer, and their answer was well, Biden was the president. There's my answer,
And see, that's
and it
just
just the infuriation was what I think what I liked. I was like, oh, they're pissing off so many people right now.
of course. Oh God, I was just
Uh,
like putting my head in my hands, like ah,
yeah,
just you just scum me. Okay, yeah. All right,
yeah.
so but all right now. You know what I really liked about your posts, even with Trump's disgraceful interaction with President Zelensky, with just the Ukraine deal, is you even said that like this. I don't know if you said it was a mistake, but you said that it wasn't a good look, right? I mean, you pretty much like what?
Right.
So do you think what Trump and Vance did with Zelensky was appropriate?
I, unfortunately, I'm all for like the unprecedented things Trump is doing. I like the fact that we're only on day, what, 35, and people feel like it's a whole year or maybe 2 years have gone by.
Yeah.
Because he's not moving at the speed of government. He's moving in what's called, what I've coined, called Trump time, right? And I'm fine with that, because otherwise it's just this constant, never ending game that gets played on the American people. But I say all that because he gets to kind of set the stage any way he wants. I was told that Zelensky asked for the reporters in the room,
Yeah.
um,
I've read
and
that
it,
too.
and
I've
it
read that
and
too.
it seemed like it was almost a chess game in front of the American people, that Zelensky didn't want to actually. He kind of like misled the whole reason for being there. Was to, Trump and his team were under the impression he was going to sign something, but then they got wind last minute that he was actually there to try and still force a narrative of we're no capitulation, and to almost like get Trump to capitulate. Like, you can't do that to Trump. It was fascinating to see in that, from that perspective, because he didn't learn the lesson that anybody else has already learned, that Trump is in a unique position in time where he's literally the most powerful man on the planet, and you can't play that kind of tough guy stance with him. You're just going to lose. That said, I still like some adherence to some decorum, and I didn't. As much as I like Vance, I felt like that should have been a president and president discussion, not a president, vice president, and cabinet discussion, right? Like, he should have seen his way out of that. That should have never occurred, because everything was honestly fine up until that point, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even
So,
true. Like a lot of what Vance said wasn't true. Like about what the forcing of the conscription.
well, no, that is true. Maybe not to the degree that he's make
Yeah,
gets people to, because they are
exaggerated.
doing that. They're exactly right, right. They are doing that. I don't know how many numbers they're getting from that, but they are definitely, they have roadblocks. They're finding people that are basically not, after 25 they are conscripted. You're supposed to go serve. It's at the age of 25 too. It's not at the age of 18, right? So there's a whole
Yeah.
7 year kind of variable wiggle room there.
Now
Um,
that's something we should dig into. So why do you think that 18-year-olds and above, like 18 to 25, why do you think they have not been conscripted?
I honestly haven't put a ton of thought behind that, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and I don't know if we have time anymore because it's been 45 minutes. I have to, I have
We can talk.
to,
I have time.
well, because one of the things that people don't talk enough about are demographics, and like the ability to actually produce the next generation, and maybe, just maybe, Zelensky's thinking long term, right? Like, he's looking at the entire chessboard, if you will, the amount of supplies, the amount of people, the amount of everything, and he's like, well, if I throw everybody at this right now, they're all just, what am I going to get from that? I'm not going to have a civilization left, right? So maybe he's giving people time to start a family. I don't know. But that's the first thought that I go to, because people, and especially in America, if we were to get into like a mandatory spending, right, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, people seem to think that stuff just paid by fairies and unicorns, and it's just like, no, it's paid by the next generation, and you
Yeah.
all need to be having more kids, you idiots.
Yes.
Like,
Yes. Yeah. I've done my part. I got three. I got three.
right,
All right. Now,
exactly, yeah.
boom, boom, nailed it.
I
All
did the
right.
bare minimum. I got my two, right? So it's just like,
Yeah, slacker. No.
yeah, well,
Well, I
but
had
like, I
twins.
think I think that I think that might, going back to the question, I think that might be why he
Yeah.
did that. Why do you think he did that?
I was thinking the same thing, that he doesn't want to risk an advancing depopulation like Russia has.
Right.
Because Russia's
Yeah.
throwing
Yeah.
everyone. Russia, they clearly they don't care. They're just like, okay, you can pull a trigger. There you go. You're done. Like you're going in. And so I think it's like what you said. It's a population issue, but I also think it's the look. Because I think if he started for like conscripting 18-year-olds and above, um, I think there would be a lot of popular backlash back home, and I think it would actually slightly I think it would turn a little bit of the internal favor against the government if they were forcing
Interesting.
18-year-olds. That's just my thing. Those are the two things I have. You know,
Interesting.
because you need people to believe in this war. Because if people really don't think it's worth fighting, then how are you going to win? Then we
Right.
have Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam. You
Right.
know, and even though it's interesting, it's like technically we failed in Vietnam, but we didn't lose any battle. Yet we still
Right.
lost from attrition, and also just the popular discontent back home, which was totally justified because we didn't belong there.
Well,
Um,
plus we had an unknown in that situation. The unknown was based off of Korea, right? The fear that China would flood forces over the border if we went into northern Vietnam, and so
yes.
we didn't send actual troops in. We just bombed the hell out of them. But little did we know how weak China actually was 20 years or so later. And because the North Vietnamese fought off the Chinese to a standstill as well when they invaded. So it's just like not having that level of intelligence led us to make wrong decisions and stunt our progress in that war. We could have taken over the entirety of Vietnam and also blunted China, but we were too afraid of the amount of weight, the bodies they send over the border. And it just in this day and age, that's not going to happen again from in Asia, right? So like we already know, like we already know what their capabilities are. We already know what they're able to do in advance. So like if we had our intelligence apparatus back
Yes.
then, we would have invaded all of Vietnam, and China could have just he could have pounded sand. But it
Yeah.
didn't exist back then. So yeah.
Well, okay. So back to
So
like
hold on. Poke said, "Didn't we force him to a table?" Say, yeah, we did, but like literally a day later. I forget the time frame, but literally a day later, I believe everything was broken. I mean, like we were pulling out, and the North was coming down, and there was a one-for-one trade-off in equipment and weapons and supplies. And then the Democrats came in and said, "Nope, we're not funding this anymore." And so it was a mad scramble to get the hell out of South Vietnam as they rolled south. And honestly, it goes back to I think what we talked about earlier as far as like an organic element, right? It's the whole reason why the Taliban was able. It's not the whole reason, but it's partially the reason why Taliban
yeah,
was able to flow in. Is like there's more of an organic like we're gonna
yeah,
win, we're socialist, whatever, and so
yeah,
that's kind of what happened. But yeah,
yeah. Well,
in a
that
nutshell.
that's I think, and it was just more popular. Like the funny thing is, a lot of people don't know is like we went in to help Vietnam in 1940 when Japan invaded, or not, sorry, not 1940. No, no, no. Japan invaded in 1940, and then when we entered the war, we helped Vietnam. We helped Ho Chi Minh. And like Ho
Hmm.
Chi Minh was actually very like, even though he was communist, he was educated in, I believe, Moscow. He really admired America. And when America was supporting them against the Japanese, like he was like, "This is it. This is our time. We're gonna free ourselves of the French yoke." And then in 1945, the war ends, and America's like, "You have to go back under French rule." Like,
Right,
imagine what Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese like the betrayal and the backstabbing.
right.
And it's like, and now the thing is, Ho Chi Minh's like, okay, you gave us all this training and weapons, so we're just gonna annihilate the French. Bye, and then we came back, and we still failed. So it's like, yeah, the tide was against us. The organic movement was against us because we were the bad guys.
Yeah, and now look at Vietnam; they love us.
Yes, favored nation status. They have that with like
Dude,
India,
yeah.
right, China, some other
We have a
countries.
lot of expats over there. Like they love tourism. It's great. Yeah,
But see, that's the thing. So America technically won.
right.
Not in
Yeah,
1973, but like America will eventually win because we have an ocean separating us, like Zelensky pointed out. We have a crap ton of money, and we've been, I think, taking advantage with that money. We just need time then, if we, and I think that's just what we should have done in the first place. We could have avoided all that, in Vietnam without the bloodshed and the whole, like the division that was caused in this country. We literally could have just waited it out
right.
and began trading and just showing like, hey, here's what happens when you trade with us. It's kind of nice, isn't it? Here you go. Uh,
That's true. Yeah.
so do you think? Well, okay. So last time I haven't read this in over a week, but I read that when Trump was blasting NATO, Mark Rutte, I think that's his name, the Secretary General, Mark Rutte, Rutte, he agreed with Trump. Like he's like these countries need to get their act together. Like France needs to get their act together. So do these other countries. and he's called the Trump whisperer. Now, I don't know what the most recent interaction between the Secretary General of NATO and Trump has been. Do you?
No, I don't.
Because if Roots is still in agreement with Trump, then I think that a lot of this is just kind of almost theatrical. But I feel like if Trump goes too far, and it's like if we start losing defense contracts with our NATO partners, or if we do descend into like a trade war with our NATO partners, we lose hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign direct investment. That's not going into the American economy. It will go into other economies. And I think the more money being pumped into the American economy, the better.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree with more money in the American economy, the better. I mean, are you getting? I haven't looked at it from that perspective at all. I've been more focused on like what the EU had said and what they're finally doing as a reaction to Trump's
The right
narrative,
thing. They're doing the right
which is
thing.
finally
Yeah.
right, finally carrot or stick,
Yeah.
right? It's in
Yeah.
spite of him kind of deal, and it's just like
Yes.
it shouldn't take that, but that's what they did. I think it's going to reinvigorate some of their arms creations. I think Germany's going to start back up again. They better. This whole like,
Yeah.
oh well, what about World War II? What happened? It's just like shut the hell up, shut up with
Yeah.
that
81 years
nonsense.
ago,
Like,
man, they've learned their
yeah, it's
lesson.
like yeah. Plus, there was no NATO back then. Plus, there was no EU back then. There was none of this back then. So it's just
And they're
like,
heavily reliant on immigrant labor.
yeah, exactly.
Heavily reliant.
Yeah, well, that's also kind of a problem, right? So, like, again, it goes back to demographics. I mean, they're almost at a one for one. I mean, like, Germany is like not doing the right thing when it comes to like taking care of what it means to be German. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. It's just, what? Uh, oh, okay. Sorry, I got a text. I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. There's a lot of
Yeah. Oh, your sound died. Okay, how about now? Say something.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, am I
I
back?
gotcha. I
Okay,
gotcha.
sorry. It's just like you could say that with everybody, right? France, like name your ethnic group, right? Like this nobody's having enough kids. Like I don't know how else to say it.
Can I tell you?
And so you have to rely on immigration, and it's just like okay, but you want assimilation along with that immigration, right? You want
Yes.
them to appreciate the culture that they're going
Yes.
to be living around.
Yes.
It's crazy to me that we haven't been able to get these common sense messages out to anybody, to include America, right?
Yeah. Well, if
So
I if I may add, and I've been saying this for 2 years, and like, it's funny. Like, if I say anything too strongly, I just lose a ton of followers. But whatever. Europe was so stupid for like about 100 years. Okay, like I always remember there was this painting that was patronized by Kaiser Wilhelm, I think the first, or Kaiser Wilhelm the second. I think it was the second, and it was like in 1909 or something like that, and it was all these great Western paragons like Athena, all these Western views. They're over a cliff and they're pointing at this huge tsunami, and there's Buddha riding the tsunami, and it's pretty much just like, hey, our like they have more kids than us. We have to keep our population high. And what did they do? World War I, they kill 30 million civilian people. World War II, 50, 60 million people. And then after these wars, killing 80 million of their population, they go on birth control.
right, yeah.
What did you think was going to happen?
Well, so somebody
Not
actually
even
said that.
mad. I'm not mad at them. I'm like, good. You want to be stupid? You deserve it. Okay, there you go.
Yeah,
Get like you need immigrants. Okay, fine. That's fine. Change the bloodlines. Change everything because you were stupid and you deserve to suffer for stupidity.
right, yeah.
You know. I mean, it's just like. uh, so that's one of my things with Europe, and so there's the right wing movement in Europe, and they're all angry and everything, and it's like, well, why didn't you do your effing duty and like have at least two or three kids,
Yeah.
you know, and just that's it, so
So yeah, so here we are. And we have entitlement societies, and then they need to constantly be taxing labor, and it's just this constant cycle of crazy. It doesn't have to be this way, like but it is. So yeah,
well, okay, I feel like we got a little derailed about the
sure.
European population thing. Dang it, but it's a worthwhile topic. And what the heck were we talking about before?
Ukraine, NATO.
Yeah, Ukraine,
Yeah,
NATO.
I don't know if you're going to get into tariffs or something. I have no
Ah,
idea.
well, okay. Actually, let's so because you mentioned how like my foreign policy stuff is pretty solid, but you think my internal stuff is a little like out there, right? Well,
Maybe.
yeah. My thing is, I just back to the meritocracy. I mean, like there definitely is nepotism, and you said something I really agree with, and I wish I didn't. Is like it took Trump getting elected and saying these things to force Europe to start like not the UK but Germany. When I believe I consider myself devoted to facts. I think facts are the most important thing, and unfortunately, facts can really if your sense of identity is based on
Emotion.
things that are not yeah if they're not factual and when you hear these facts that may contravene that, then people get angry. They feel like that they're being directly attacked. Okay, so but let's think. We were talking about the tariffs and all that. So okay, what do you think our current president is doing right internally in this country? Because I was saying how actually no, before you answer that question, I was saying how you know whatever you feel about our current president, he has definitely done a lot of unprecedented things that are considered negative, right? And fine, all that, and like everything he's done and how he actually is, yet he still got reelected. He got elected the first time and he got reelected.
Right.
So this isn't just about people on a certain part of the political spectrum lacking in anything. There's clearly something that the people are fed up. The people are
Hmm.
clearly fed up with a lot of this virtue signaling and a lot of this lip service, but no actual change.
Right.
You know, and is that why like? And what's interesting is Rebel Intel, and then there have been a couple other people who've like done like black ops. I know who support the current president. And is it because you've just seen the stuff like that actually happens under the hood, and you're like, okay, this is effing wrong, and this can't keep continuing? And do you think Trump is the necessary chaos to stop that?
I think that those of us that grow up inside the industry, if you will, we all still come away with the same like thought. Like, why are we spending all of this money to do all of these things? It's all pointless. Like that's, and I'm not saying all of it is. There's definitely value in some of it, but like it could be targeted better. It could be spent better. There's a lot of just a lot out there that we waste our money, that we waste taxpayer money on, and it's just like, and when you're around it 24/7, 365 for 20 years, you're just like, holy hell! Like, why are we doing this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so when
Yeah,
we get
okay.
when somebody steps up and says, hey, we're going to stop all of this, or we're going to find a way to at least curtail it and make it more efficient, like we're going to cling to that, even if it's not necessarily real, right? Because if there's one difference between these two parties is that at least one party talks about it. The other party just says it's not a problem. Hell, they made up modern monetary theory. Like, what the fuck is that? You just want to put the debt on the positive side of the balance sheet, just like magic. Like it doesn't, And so it's just like it
I can't
doesn't.
debate that. I
Yeah, it
can't
did.
debate that because it makes a lot of sense.
And so even when they come in and they're being hypocrites and they don't necessarily do what they said they do, or in the sense of the finance, at least they address it. At least they try. At least they say, hey, if we did these things, and at least they have something to be hypocritical about, which means they had standards that to at least compare to, which is the left doesn't have any of that. So it's just
The left doesn't even address it.
yeah. It'd be nice if they did. It would be nice if instead of the question is, well, we should tax the rich. Then no, the question should be, what are we going to spend less on? Like, answer that for me. And then of course their go-to is the military, and that it's like, go to something that like of substance, right, of meaning. And that's why USAID got axed. And there is stuff in the military that does need to get curtailed, but you're going to get carve out more than 50 billion from that. And I'm not saying that's nothing. That's something we should do that, absolutely. But those are the things we need to do. We need to hatchet away at this big tree trunk, and every little bit counts. So yeah, I don't know.
So is that why you support Tulsi? Is what like I do? I'm not a fan of Tulsi, but You support Tulsi, correct?
I do, and I'm not sure why you're not a fan of hers.
Yeah.
But maybe you could tell me why you're not a
Well,
fan.
first I'll tell you something I do like is she said what you said. Like we don't need to be in all these different places. Like
Right.
why are we here? Uh,
Did
but
we
like
need to
why?
topple the Assad regime? Look what they've done. That's kind of her point, right? Like how many troops died doing that? I know we've had a few dozen, die to get that toppled to support that initiative, and then look what happened. What last week or a couple days ago, over 1,000 Christians have been slaughtered. Oh, geez, I gotta stop my language. You know what I'm saying? Um, and it's just like why? I know Assad was bad, but like, is this any better?
Well, I mean, so when it initially happened in 2014, we were giving assistance and to the opposition forces, and then we Obama said, well, okay, if Assad starts using like nerve gas, like if they start using chemical warfare, we're really going to up the ante and we're going to take him out, or at least just like castrate him, and that didn't happen. He walked on us, and
Right.
I think we didn't get involved enough in Syria to have ended it quickly.
But
If we
that's a
want,
good, but that is a good reason though. Like if you're gonna set a red line like that, then be decisive and tell them and show them why you set that red line.
I
Don't
agree.
give,
No, no,
you know.
100%. No, I'm criticizing Obama. We should have
Oh,
done that. We should have
yeah,
gone in and made this last a few weeks instead of
right,
11 effing years.
right.
Okay, like because I really do think yeah, Assad was the bad guy, and also he, I mean, like how many like there are weapons factories and everything in Syria that Iran uses. Iran like Syria is a nexus of transport, for Iran to go into
Right.
like Lebanon. Okay, let's get rid of the freaking regime and okay,
But
uh,
let's do it quick and in a hurry. Let's not try and do regime change wars. Let's not like try and stay there for another 10 or 15, 20 years. And I think that's what Tulsi was also getting at. And, what is the cost? I mean, like a lot of this stuff we do, it is unnecessary. And so if it costs an American life, it's like why? Like why did that person have to lose their life for whatever? We're not stopping the next Schmittler.
yeah.
We're in a disagreement with somebody, and they don't want to go along with us. So now we're gonna like send in troops and maybe and for what? Like what do you
So
say to that family member, right? Like oh he lost his life for the cause of liberty in Syria. It's like who the cares,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
Now the thing is, my issue with Tulsi is okay. One, I don't know if people knew this, but I wasn't a fan of Biden, and I wasn't actually a fan of Kamala Harris. I just consider them to be better options than the alternative. That's something I want to keep in mind.
yeah.
Now,
I don't mean to, I hate cutting you
please,
off, but when I get comments like this, guys pick a lane, I think the value of us, people like you and me, is that we don't pick a lane. I'm so sick
yes,
and tired
yes,
of of people saying, well, you have to always be on this side or have to always be
no,
on that side.
nope.
It's the most idiotic position to take, and yet
Thank you.
so many people across the world, especially in America, do it.
Yep.
So anyways, I just want to address that real quick. Go ahead.
It's the death of the mind. It's the death of
Right.
individualistic thinking. So there is no lane. My lane is on the side that helps the most people, and it's not just left or right. Now,
Right.
okay. So, so in the 2016 debates, Tulsi Gabbard went after Kamala Harris, like torpedoed her chances in that debate where she claimed that Kamala Harris was intentionally sending people to death row and denying probation, like just like keeping people in jail on purpose just to suit
Right.
her own needs, which it wasn't
Right.
true. It was debunked. And to me, that was like,
Not
okay, like
was it
that
though?
seemed, yeah, yes. I've
Entirely.
like, okay, if when you say entirely, now I'm saying okay, like there was no instance where she kept people on death row when they were proven innocent. And then like the thing I read about that she was most criticized for was her punishment of truancy. And that's a good thing. I think it's a good
Except that I accept that that actually negatively affected some very vulnerable people, and then threw their kids unnecessarily into the program, which is also abusive. So it's just like
well. What was
I don't
happening
necessarily
before?
think that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, like now here's the thing. I don't know if that program worked. Like I don't know if it's not still being used. Right?
Right? Yeah,
You try
but
things, it breaks.
but she
Okay.
was proud of it though. Like she. That's the thing. It's like if your policies like I don't want to make a blanket statement like this, but you can't. like your policies, if they don't work, don't be proud of them, I guess. I don't know. Like it's
Yes.
like it didn't work and yet she touts it as a victory. And I was like, oh, you kind of really messed with families' lives, like to a very bad degree. Like they're forever traumatized by your policies. Like, I don't know.
But again, it's like so that is something that could be said about every person in political power. Like even like good presidents or good
Sure,
leaders
sure,
will
yeah.
be
That's why I didn't want to
horrendous.
necessarily make, yeah, I didn't want to make it like a sort of blanket statement, but she was, I mean, here's the thing. When Tulsi
Yeah.
made that statement, though, like everybody thought that was actually true, and to some degree, it was like she was definitely keeping people in prison longer for minor offenses, right? But like as far as the death row thing, maybe that was disproven. But the
The
point is,
minor
at the time,
offenses, you're right. Minor
yeah,
offenses, yes.
yeah, and I think that's kind of atrocious. But regardless, when Tulsi made that, it wasn't already debunked. I guess is my point. Like she was going off of what was literally kind of widely known at the time, and if somebody had come out with any debunking material, it that was not widely known at the time. So like she wasn't necessarily wrong to use it as a method to torpedo her in the debate.
I
I
think
don't think.
if you're someone
Think about the Biden laptop, right? The Biden
uh,
laptop was real as real could be, but like 51 Intel professionals to put their careers or put their weight on that scale, so Biden could have a talking point in a debate. That that was the whole purpose behind that was so Biden could refute it. That's pretty fucked up.
yeah, like I'll give you that. And well, the thing is, like I said, I didn't care much for Biden.
True.
I just saw him as a more suitable alternative. And I think unfortunately, when you're in politics for that many years, you're just like you're dirty. But regardless, I still think he was a better option for the sheer fact that he was able. It looked like he was able to get more. He got more compromises put in place, like the passage of the infrastructure bill. But I want to go back to Tulsi. Now, that reason kind of because no, you asked me, and it's not just that.
Sure.
That's like it
Okay.
takes more than just one thing to get me to be like,
Okay.
all right. But then the fact that like, okay, she met with Assad, saying that Assad was not our enemy, and then like she leaves the Republican Party, but then she leaves the Democratic Party, and then she switches to Republican, and she starts. It just like her rhetoric about Russia. It sounded like a lot of Russian talking points. So to me, it just seems like she flipped.
Hmm.
That's one of the reasons why I don't like Vance. Vance went from saying like, "Oh, Trump is so bad. Oh, he's so stupid," and now he flipped. And I don't like that. Like now he's like licking Trump's knee. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, he has to because he wants to be the next president. So well, okay. So Vance is masterful. That dude, he's scarily good at what he does. So that'll be interesting. But watch me flip your opinion of Tulsi. You may very well come away from this live being, begrudgingly, I agree with that Intel
okay.
guy. I don't know. We'll see. So I don't know if you saw my TikTok that I did on her. Basically not necessarily debunking, but also adding context,
Was
right,
this a while ago?
to the narrative. It was a while ago. Yeah,
I saw
it
it. I
was,
saw it, but I don't remember much. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah. So like, when people start to dig into these things, they start to come away with a more nuanced, like, okay, well, she's not as bad as they're saying she is, like that. It's that kind of thing, right? Because some of the things you can't dismiss. Lieutenant colonel in the Army National Guard. You don't just become a lieutenant colonel. There is a competitive element there that is hard to get to.
Yes,
She achieved that. That's pretty
I
awesome.
agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, and on top of that, she has a TSSCI clearance that has been redone at least twice. So she's had one at least for at least 10 years. In fact, longer because you get one automatically when you're a congressperson. But whatever. Um, that's more need of the job versus whether you're actually because the people basically say you're the people we want, so the government has to say, well, okay, we'll vet you, but you're going to get a clearance anyways. But she still had she lieutenant colonel, right? And her position as an public affairs officer further warrants the not public affairs. What is it? Civil affairs. Further warrants a TSSCI. If you're in civil affairs, you get one of those, and so she's been vetted by the FBI. So there's that. So um, multiple times. Lieutenant Colonel, FBI vetting, clearance, Congresswoman, like these are all great things. Her position has never changed. Loss of life, hate it, doesn't want to deal with it, thinks it needs to be vitally important before you go risk it. Those are great qualities.
Yes,
At the end of the day, they're great.
I agree.
Um, I think that her attempt at the Assad thing was more diplomatic. She had more presidential views in her mind, and she wanted to be more diplomatic versus being intel driven. Plus, maybe she didn't truly trust the intel community, just like Trump doesn't. Maybe get that said, that's not necessarily the intel community's fault. That is what we do with the information. I could go on a whole separate rant about
Yeah.
that. They get told. They get told that what they do with the information is the problem, right? They could just ignore it. So she may not have understood all of that, those dynamics when she went and did the Assad thing. But she was basically trying to say trust but verify, kind of, and I think she was just being diplomatic. The whole Russia thing, they're like, how dare he has you address his legitimate concerns? That's being diplomatic. Now that really is like, you may not like what Putin has done, but you have got to respect their position in order to combat it. Like you have to understand it, right? You have to turn the map around and address it, and you can't diplomacy. What did Biden do? He didn't talk to Putin for 3 freaking years. That's not diplomacy. Diplomacy isn't like, well, we're not going to talk to you until you capitulate. That's that's
Well,
that's not diplomacy.
I
And so
think
she,
that works.
well,
That works if you beat them quickly and humiliate them and drag them to the table instead of let it
fair,
go on for 3 years.
fair, but then that's her
Yeah.
point, right? Like we
Yeah.
didn't address his concerns, even though but she was being diplomatic. That's why she put the word legitimate. They're only legitimate to Putin and Russia, right? They're not legitimate to anybody else, but they're there. You have to recognize them, and we didn't, we ignored them. In fact, we said, "Screw you, we don't care." And that's what led to him being like, "Oh, fine, you don't care about my legitimate concerns. Well, I could give two shits about Ukraine." Like, so it's like they get a vote, right? The enemy gets a vote, so you have to understand the enemy's point of view. And then on top of that, she threw in the biolabs, and they're like, "Oh, that was not a myth, people." The thing that infuriates me about the whole biolab thing is that
Mhm.
the biolabs were there. We were funding them. Because they were old. They were old USSR weapons labs that we were trying to ensure were not defunct, and that the pathogens they held onto were being studied correctly and held correctly and contained correctly. Because guess what, people? All of those diseases that Russia tried to use as an excuse, right? They're like, because I don't think people remember this, but remember when they were like going to the UN and saying this is our justification for all of these evil diseases that they could unleash
Yeah.
upon Russia. It's like, guess what, Russia? They're zoonotic. Like they materialize in nature in that area. That's why you need the biolabs to contain them and study them
And
and whatnot.
how did Tulsi address it? She addressed it like we were using these biolabs like we were
No,
going to
no, no,
start
no, no.
launching. I
No,
heard her say it.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Go read her tweet. She said that she was concerned that because of the war, they were going
Yes.
to be attacked and thus release into the world.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But
You're right.
that was her concern. She didn't use the word weapons either, right? She was not trying to play the narrative, the Russian narrative. She was
Yeah.
simply trying to draw that line between the Russian narrative and reality, which was if I blow up a biolab, is it going to release pathogens into the area? Maybe. I
Yes.
mean,
But that was her justification for not fighting, for ending the conflict with Russia, right? That was one of her justifications. And to me,
right. Okay.
she made it sound very overblown. She made it sound like it was going to cause these uncontainable
Oh yeah.
outbreaks.
Right.
And
Well,
it just,
because yeah, I agree. Yeah. But
it
but
just,
but but
and,
but, but let me wrap the bow on this one.
please.
So I still feel like she was being very diplomatic. I think it's ultimately very minor. I think instead of looking at a couple of these things that make you raise the eyebrow about, is she being diplomatic? Is she being undermined? Just keep in mind the core values that I outlined earlier, right?
Yes.
No risk of life, lieutenant colonel, the congresswoman, storied career, deserving of a leadership position within the agencies. I think she'll do fine. And then I'll add this one more. I talked to my senator. I'm not going to say who,
Oh,
but
great.
I asked him about her, and he said that he had a conversation with her, and that she assured him, and basically her assurances to the other senators was that she is not going to go maverick, that she will adhere to Radcliffe, really, who is in charge of the CIA.
Yeah.
So take that for what it is.
So that was actually that. Okay, I'm not saying I like her, but that was reassuring to hear that. But let's see if she follows through with what she says, because when somebody flips the way I perceive her as flipping, I no longer trust assurances.
Right.
And I guess what
I have
makes me
5 minutes left, by the way. Sorry.
no problem. Yeah, I gotta go soon. What makes me angry with her is that because she actually is very intelligent and she's very capable, and she is so distinguished, the fact that she just switched and started helping our current president get reelected, I was just like, why? Like, what? And to me, I just, I don't, I just don't understand how
Uh,
that guy who said they're eating dogs, they're eating cats, they're
what? Do
eating pets.
why does that bother you?
Ah!
Why does that shouldn't bother you?
Why does a splinter on my left butt cheek bother me? I don't know, because it's
Listen,
not supposed to be there.
listen. I'll wrap up the Tulsi thing with Pogue Actual. Just did a video on her, and I got to go watch it. I'm sure
Yeah.
it was perfect as far as like being unbiased. So I encourage anybody watching this to go check it out. I'm going to check it out after this because I know he did it, but I didn't have time to watch it. But he's done videos on other things like Pete Hegseth, and it's been super unbiased. So good job on Pogue. Um, but I know we only have a few minutes left. I was just curious. What do you think? So, like, I know why Trump won, but what does the Democratic Party even have? Like, they're completely in shambles. They have nothing to represent. Like, what is there? Do you have any thoughts as to their future?
That's like, honestly, the Democrats have gone so out of touch with what most Americans are going through. They care about this corporatist decorum, and they, God, they, after this election, they just don't know what's really important. They don't know how to get through to most Americans. And I think they helped alienate the middle. I think they helped alienate just people who are just trying to get by. Like the Democrats were saying how good the economy was, and I was saying that too. Like, technically, like despite what everything that was being said about our debt and just like banking system and the strength of our dollar and everything, like that's correct. But if the Democrats are really trying to like reach out to the people, that you have to realize, hey, you guys are suffering. Like, prices are going up, but your wages aren't going up to match these prices. Your quality of life is diminishing, and the Democrats really, they didn't
Can
address it. So what do they have? All they have now is a mirror to look at their failures. That's what they
Yeah.
have. And there needs to be a reform, a more middle-minded reform that doesn't give the microphone and the soapbox to like demagogues.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what their future holds. It seems to me like Trump has been able to basically take every talking point from them,
Yes.
and I don't. I mean, if the right would be foolish to let any of it go, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way to start giving things away to the Democrats as soon, especially after a Trump admin. I'm sure it'll all go back to what it used to be, which is almost sad. One of the things I'd like see people to address that I personally am not. I don't think I'm legally allowed to, but I want to see people address the how wages don't necessarily outpace inflation, and how simply making the topic talking point that they do now doesn't doesn't mean that they compensate for all of the inflation in the past, right? So we're still suffering.
Yes.
We're still
Yes.
suffering, yeah, and nobody talks about it, and
Yep.
not even in a political sphere. And I'm wild, and I'm wondering, is it because all the corporations have like basically wrested control over this topic? I don't know, but like that's so frustrating to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish somebody more smarter than me would talk about it, because it's that would be a winning narrative. The problem is the Democrats have got to let some time pass. Not that I'm rooting for them. I'm fine. I'm glad they lost, but they really got to let some time pass, because every talking point they try and shoot out there, everyone looks at them and be like, "Yeah, but you guys did that to us." Like, it's like when they say, "Oh, inflation's high and like wages are low and everything's falling apart," and they're like, "That's why you guys did that to us." Like, that's what everybody's saying. So it's like,
Yeah. Well, because the Democrats also didn't, like, one, the Democrats, and I know we got to go in a minute, but it's like the Democrats didn't do the inflation to them. You know what I mean? It was the Federal Reserve, And the early response, well, not the early, the response to COVID, which occurred, in 2020, and then of course 2021. But there was lowering interest rates, printing money faster than we have printed money since World War II. And the bulk of that happened under the Trump administration. And what was really clever is that this was happening near the end of Trump's presidency. He loses he loses the election. And then Biden gets elected, and then that's when inflation starts going through the roof to 9%, because it takes a while for inflation to rear its head. And then the correction to inflation was raising interest rates and harming economic growth, which also happened under Biden. And then now Trump gets to come into office with lower inflation, a stabilized money supply, and he gets to take credit for that.
True.
You know,
Well, I will correct you slightly. The
sure,
very last stimulus, which was 1.9 trillion, was
Biden's.
completely partisan. You didn't even get a Republican vote out of that. So, like, I wonder if somebody could do the math and do the statistics on how much that 1.9 contributed to overall inflation, and then maybe split that difference and say, hey, yeah, but because honestly, some of that stuff had to get passed under the Trump administration. So,
Sure.
how much of it is always up for debate, but that 1.9 trillion did not have to happen, in my opinion. And so I feel like had they not done that, then people wouldn't have such a strong argument to be like, well, the Democrats led with all this inflation. Because you're right, like some of it happened under Trump, but it's just
Most
like,
of it.
yeah, but you guys, well, you say most,
Most
but
of it.
yeah, but you say
But
that, but then
1.9 trillion is
also
enough. 1.9 trillion is,
1.9
I
trillion is a
get that's a
lot,
ton.
and
But
then
then don't forget, if you've seen my post about the tax cuts that generously favored the corporations and the top 1%, it saved them $170 billion every single year for 7 years. And that's also when we started having the most massive deficit
I saw,
spike we've had.
I saw that, but then that's also like still correlates back to I think something we said earlier, which is like spending. Can we please address spending? You know what
Yes.
I'd love to see is a
Yeah.
discussion, an honest discussion about reforming or getting rid of, depending on your talk, but like actual ideas around reform of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, because those are the things that are tanking all our spending, right?
And
When 80%,
don't forget the Department of Education. Like, I mean, Visual Capitalist did a great visualization where they showed that the number of employees in the Department of Education has barely changed in 20 years. Barely
right,
changed. But the amount of money that they get is up like 10, like 11 or 1200%.
right, and it's just
So
insane,
there is spending that needs to be cut. There really is. I
right?
agree. I
Absolutely,
think,
there really is, yeah.
you know, okay,
Let's
we got to
so
talk
I
about
gotta
it more
go, but
later.
like I would love to schedule another time with you. Maybe we could start with that topic. I don't know. We'll see.
Yes.
Let's talk in the DMs. But yeah, I gotta jump to a meeting
Yes.
unfortunately. But
No problem. Great talking to you.
yeah, it was great talking to you. It was great. All right.
That's it. See you
Yeah.
later, man.